Hey guys, it's Bonnie. Today I am here to talk about Mockingjay Part 2, which is the last Hunger Games movie ever, and I'm really sad and emotional about it. I was gonna do kind of a review slash discussion, but I really don't have much to say in terms of a review. I will just say that it was a great movie overall. It was very faithful to the book, which is not my favorite in the series, but it was still a really well done movie. The cinematography was amazing. Jennifer Lawrence's acting was amazing. And I just was emotional and I cried a lot. I would say if you can to see Mockingjay or like rewatch Mockingjay Part 1 before you go into Mockingjay Part 2, because it picks up like literally right off where it left off. Like you could put like a fade to black kind of cut screen in the middle of those two and it would be a fine transition, I think. So if you can, I would watch Mockingjay Part 1 to give yourself a refresher. Even if you don't need it, it's still kind of nice. I saw the double feature on Wednesday night and it was great. But yeah, that's all I'm going to say for the non-spoilerly part of this video. So if you haven't watched the film, come back later. So like I said, that I saw the movie on Wednesday night, so I went to the double feature. I got this awesome like lanyard thing with it, and I don't know if all of them do, but I know at Cinemark they came with this little 3-finger salute pin. Anyway, let's talk about the movie now, because God, I was an emotional wreck, and I still am. Like, it's been 2 days, but I'm still not okay. I've only seen it once, so as I see it more times, I'm sure I will pick out more flaws or more things that I like or more specific things. But for right now, this is just what I remember, this is what I wrote down, and this is what I currently feel. So let's get into it. The movie starts off with Katniss kind of like getting that brace off that she had on her neck because Peeta choked her, and she's kind of like struggling to speak. And I don't think it's supposed to be funny, but it kind of came off a little humorous, which probably isn't the best way to open off your very serious and dark movie, but then again, maybe it is because it's a very serious and dark movie. Then we see Katniss go to District 2, and a lot of stuff happens there, as we know, but the most important thing, the best part of that whole sequence, was Jennifer Lawrence's acting. Oh my. Obviously, we already know that Jennifer Lawrence is an incredible actress, but that scene, so many scenes in the movie, but this one was really, really good. Her speech where she's like, you know, stop killing for him, you know, we're putting each other against each other. It was just so good. Why is she so good? Why is she the perfect Katniss? I like started tearing up because it was so good. We also see Katniss go to see Peeta, and that was a very interesting scene because it's still early in the movie, so Peeta's still pretty messed up, and they're talking about how he remembers the bread scene, and it's all nice and emotional, and then he ends it off with, like, I think he says something along the lines of, I would have been in a lot less trouble if I just gave the bread to the pig. And I was just like, oh my God. We finally get to see Joanna again. There's really not enough of her in this movie, but the parts that she does have are so good. Like when she comes in, when we first see her and she takes, you know, Katniss's morphling drip to put on herself because they took her away. And she's just so blunt and just, it's like exactly like the book, that scene. And Joanna is just, she's so great, and I would have loved to see more of her. In the book we definitely get more because we see her training with Katniss to kind of go fight in the Capitol, but that does not happen in the movie, and I'll get to that in a moment. Then we have Finnick and Annie's wedding, which was really, really sweet. I'm not the biggest Finnick and Annie shipper, if I'm going to be honest. Low-key, like, my second favorite ship for Katniss is Finnick. My first is Gale, in case you're wondering. But my second is Finnick because I don't know. I'm weird, and I just love Finnick too. So, I mean, it's not that I don't like Annie, because I just want Finnick to be happy, but we'll get to that later, of course. This is so emotional. I'm gonna start crying. So as I said, they kind of skip the training portion in this movie, which on one hand kind of makes sense because it would have kept us in District 13 for a lot longer, and the first movie was already in District 13 for so long that I think they're probably like, we don't want to stay in District 13 any longer because it might kind of bore the audience. They got to kind of move it along. So I do understand why they cut it out. What they had Katniss do instead, obviously, is go, like, Joanna's like, oh, I can cover for you, and Katniss sneaks on a hovercraft that's going to the, like, bunkers that they're staying in. And yeah, so it was an interesting way. I think it was a good way to change it up if they had to change it up. So yeah. Of course, we have many Gale and Katniss moments throughout this. I'm pretty sure this happened actually in District 2. I can't remember. I think they had 2 kisses in the film. I don't know. It's all a blur. But the one when he's like, it's like kissing someone drunk, like that was so nice. I actually think that was in District 2, so I'm a little off. But that was a really nice kissing scene, can I just say, as a Gale Katniss fan, except for it's drunk part, but whatever. I also really liked once, you know, Katniss gets there, she kind of has her own plan to go off and kill Snow, and you see Gale come in, and he's kind of like, Katniss, I know you. We've been hunting for years. I know when you're about to go off on your own, and I'm just like, my children, my 2 little children who would escape into the woods so that they could be happy, and they never get to actually, I'm done, I'm a mess. So then we have that whole scene with Boggs where he tells everyone that they're basically going to be the on-screen faces and they're not going to do any real fighting, but obviously that ends up not being true because all the things go to hell when they set off a pod that they didn't know existed, and it's so intense, and Boggs dies, and it's really sad. I wasn't like crying, but I was definitely tearing up, and I was just like, as the movie progressed, I just started crying more and more with each scene until it got to full-on sobbing at the end. So they have that whole thing where, you know, after Boggs dies, and they leave the sisters in the apartment or whatever because the one couldn't move and the other one wanted to stay, and then you see them like firing and stuff, and they're like, oh, it's the Leagues, and you're like, oh, they're gonna die, and the Capitol kind of blows up that building, and then so the Capitol thinks that all of them are dead, but they're not. However, since the Capitol thinks they're dead, they do that thing where like they put their faces on the Capitol television screen, and they have them like black and white with cannon sounds going off like in the games, and it is pretty amusing. But what really messed me up was when they showed like when the Capitol put Finnick's face up there, then we actually go to Finnick's actual reaction, and he like is laughing. I'm just like, you need to stop because it's gonna be real soon. And it was unfair to my heart. Speaking of Finnick, something I didn't really mention, I really liked kind of his dynamic with Peeta throughout the whole thing. It was kind of almost his job since, you know, Katniss couldn't really be trusted, or not Katniss couldn't be trusted, Peeta couldn't trust to be close to Katniss. So we saw Finnick kind of like guiding him everywhere and being like, okay, like he was like feeding him lines, like what he was gonna say. I just thought that was really cute. So then we go down to the sewers, and I'm just sitting here like, let's just not do it. I've watched a lot of the cast interviews, and like they have talked about this sewer scene so much, about how like hard it was, but let me tell you, it looks incredible. Oh my god, it looked incredible. Obviously, you know, if you're watching this, you've watched the movie. So good. Also really kept you on your seat because like, you know that the lizard mutts things, which are terrifying, are going to come up eventually, but they keep doing it where like you're like, okay, this is it, and then be like, oh no, all good, then it'd be it did it like at least 3 or 4 times until they actually appeared, and I was just like, stop messing with my head. So then the scary mutt things finally attack, and like almost everyone dies. Obviously Finnick dies, and oh my, I was just sitting there waiting for it, and I was like pre-crying because I just knew it was gonna happen, and then seeing it was just like, oh my god, like he literally dies because he saves Katniss, and then he's climbing up the ladder and he's about to make it, and then they just get him, and Katniss says nightlock, nightlock, not like nightlock, that wasn't words. And then Katniss says, you know, nightlock, 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 and she throws the hollow and it explodes, and I'm just like, I was a mess. I was a straight up mess. I would have been worse because I wasn't like the top mess quite yet, but I would have been. But you don't really see the characters reacting to it right away because they got to keep going, and if like the characters had reacted immediately, I would have been even worse. After that, once they're in Tigress's shop, who looks incredible, can I say? Tigress is awesome looking. That makeup or whatever they used, top notch, so good. But once they're safe in Tigress's cellar and Katniss sees them all kind of beat up, you know, Gale's kind of beat up and Cressida is helping him, Pollux is crying, which really messed me up because his brother died. And also when they were like going into the sewers and like Pollux was kind of freaking out because he'd been down there for 5 years without seeing the sun. Oh my god, those characters didn't really mess me up in the books, but in the movies, yeah, I was messed up. And then Katniss goes on that speech about, you know, I made it all up, and like, look at all these people that are dead for me now. And you know, Cressida's like, we all knew, even the soldiers from 13. And I'm just like, oh my god, I was so emotional because Katniss was emotional. Anytime Katniss was emotional, I was emotional. So after that, we get the talk between Gale and Peeta. And I've been waiting for this talk because like, it's so weird to like, I don't know, you have these two main characters that almost have never interacted in the entire series, and it's just very, very odd. And it had to be really odd for Liam and Josh to be like, oh, we actually have a scene together. But we get to see them talking, and I really liked that it wasn't combative at all. It wasn't like putting them against each other. It was pretty much them both just being like, she loves you. No, she loves you. And I really liked that, and obviously Katniss is awake and listening to it. But yeah, that whole scene was really nice. So then it is finally time to go out into the refugees to go and take down the Capitol, or attempt to. So then Katniss and Gale go out, and they're not disguised like at all. Like in the book they were wearing like full-on disguises, but in the movie it was just like hoods, and I'm like, yo, Katniss, they're gonna see you. And then there's that little girl in the lemon coat who does recognize Katniss, and you know, we're like, oh my god, is she gonna say something? And then the rebels come in and start bombing them, and it's just a mess. Unlike the books, we don't see the girl in lemon coat die. We do see that in the book, which is really messed up. But in this one, we only see her crying over her mother or her father, which is still heartbreaking. But I was like, oh my god, are they gonna show her dead? But they didn't. Peacekeepers are firing and the rebels are firing, and that thing happens where Katniss and Gale get split up, although I don't think it happens like it happens in the book where like the ground like breaks open. I think Gale just gets captured, whatever. And you hear him saying, you know, shoot me, and Katniss is like waiting. She's about to, but she doesn't do it, obviously. So then we get to the next death that we're all waiting for. What's really emotional though is like before it happens, the Capitol's like, bring up your children. Like the children aren't already penned in like they are in the book. They're like, give us your children. And we see the children being put into that little sectioned off area, and then the parachutes fall and the bombs go off, and it's just like, oh, that's so, like, even though they're Capitol children, they're still children, and it's still like disturbing. Katniss, you know, she's moving along, trying to get closer, and obviously she sees Prim, and she says her name. She says Primrose, to be exact. Like, we almost never hear her call her that in the series, but she does then, and then the bombs go off. The rest of the bombs go off. And we see Katniss kind of fly back, and like we see that she's on fire, and then kind of fades to black, and she wakes up in the hospital. But after that, here's one of my negative points of the movie. After that, we never see her with burns. Like, her face is fine, and we're like led to assume that her body gets all healed up. But in the books, she had like burns all over her body, and I think it would have been very important to keep that. Especially, I was just watching an interview that Jennifer Lawrence did on Nightline with Diane Sawyer, and she was talking about this fan that she met during the first promotion for the movie. It was a little girl who had suffered burn marks, and she said that, you know, Katniss' character made her feel better to not give her those burn marks. I think they could have done it. It wasn't that hard, but. So then we get the last scene between Katniss and Gale, which is just like, for the most part, it was faithful to the book, except for her last line, which is a very cold goodbye, Gale. And that just, I was not happy with that, obviously, because that's not how it goes in the books. In the book, Katniss is like really upset. Like, she knows she can't really face him like she did before, but she's thinking to herself, like, she wants to call him back into the room and be like, I can forgive you. In the movie, it's just like, she's really cold about it, and I wasn't a fan of that. So then we have Katniss' scene in Snow's garden. It was a little weird because they were kind of just letting Snow just chill around in his garden. Like, there were guards, but like there was no one holding him down. It was kind of a weird thing to see on screen. But obviously it was important because it made Katniss realize that, hey, Snow didn't send out those bombs, Coin did. Which, emphasis on Coin did. Coin. That scene happened before the scene with Gale, but too much emotions to even get it in the right order, I'm sorry. After all of that, we have the meeting with the other victors and Coin. And Obaria is there, but which she's never really talked about. Anyway, they have the victors come together to vote on Coin's idea for a last Hunger Games. Scene is just like the book. Joanna's like, yo, let's do it. And he's like, no. And if Finnick were here, he would say no too, but Joanna has to point out that he's not. Obviously, Katniss ends up saying yes for Prim, but we all know that it's really to get Coin on her side. And there's this long look between Haymitch and Katniss, which kind of like signifies that they're having this little conversation in their head. And Haymitch goes, "I'm with the Mockingjay," and it goes from there. So then we had the big scene that we've all been waiting for since book 1, Snow's assassination. It's really big and like dramatic. They have the drummers going and it's in the city circle and like all these people are behind Katniss, and she doesn't have just one arrow like in the book. She has like a full thing, but whatever. Coin gives this speech that kind of made it a little too obvious what was going to happen. She was like, "She will send her arrow with her heart's decision," or something really lame like that. So then obviously Katniss shoots Coin and not Snow, and Snow starts laughing. Like, the laugh is so good. Honestly, President Snow in this whole movie is just so sassy. The one part when Snow is giving a speech about how that when they think Katniss and them are dead, but Coin kind of cuts in and she says something that Snow had said, but she got like one word wrong and like he like corrects her. I'm just like, man, Snow, sassy all the way to the end. Peeta obviously tries to stop Katniss, or does stop Katniss from taking the Nightlock pill, while the crowd behind Katniss just mobs Snow, which I think is a lot better of a death for him than just an arrow to a heart anyway, so it was a really well done scene. I really enjoyed it. So obviously Katniss is kind of taken into some room, but unlike the books, we don't really see her go insane like she did. Like, she was really messed up in the books, but we don't really see that in the movie. We don't see her in the hospital. We don't see her talking to Dr. Aurelius or whatever. But what eventually happens is Haymitch comes in to read a letter to her from Plutarch, which obviously was supposed to be read in the actual film by Plutarch, but obviously Philip Seymour Hoffman passed away before he could do it. Rest in peace to that wonderful actor. But the letter still came across really well. It was very emotional. It had the famous line about how we're all fickle, stupid human beings with a destiny for self-destruction or something, I can't remember. But it was really well done, and I think Haymitch reading it fits, because if they had anyone else do it, it wouldn't really make sense. Like, if they had Effie do it, that would have just ruined it. Then after that, Haymitch is just like, all right, now we go home. They say goodbye to Effie. There's a "Hey Effie" kiss, which is kind of weird. I don't know how I feel about it. Like, on one hand, it's like, oh, it's cute, but on the other hand, it's like, I don't know. It wouldn't make sense in the books for sure. I guess the movie's a little different, but yeah. So then back in 12, we have the most heartbreaking scene, I would say, of the film, which is when Katniss is yelling at Buttercup to go away. And I was a mess. I was a sobbing mess. Just thinking about it right now, I could cry. Funny because, like, it's funny, but when Buttercup first appears, the audience kind of laughs, and I was just like, you ain't gonna be laughing in about 5 seconds. So we see Katniss sort of picking herself back up after that. Peeta returns and he's planting the primroses, and they do the kind of like, they grow back together sort of thing, kind of. They just kind of show little clips of them, I think. There's really just one, I think. Or maybe there's a couple. I can't remember. At this point, the movie was about to be over and I was just crying straight through, okay? But there's this scene where Haymitch, Katniss, and Peeta are kind of like eating dinner together, which is really nice, and they read a letter from Annie. My God, I started sobbing immediately. They talked about where Katniss's mother was and where Gale was and about her son, and they had a picture of her and her son, and I was just like, why are they breaking my heart like this? Literally dead at that point. You could ask my friend, like, as like, because at first you don't really like know it's from Annie, but like she gets to the point where she's like, my son, and then I broke down immediately at those words. Then we get to the epilogue finally, and it was really, really well done. I liked it kind of better than the book's epilogue, because they really made Katniss in the book seem like she did not want her children. She said she was literally scared of them. But in the movie, we don't really get that. She looks happy, and they haven't used, like, you know, monologue, I guess, like voiceover from Katniss talking to the audience in the whole film, and they didn't do this here either. They just had her kind of talking to her little baby. She does end it with, "But there's much worse games to play," and I was a sobbing mess. just a mess. The aging was a little weird. I didn't think Jen looked that much older. Josh kind of did, but he was far away, but he had that like that dad vibe. And then it's over, and we hear a reversion of Deep in the Meadow sang by Jennifer Lawrence as the credits start to roll. And I literally said, I remember I was like, I'm a mess, as I was crying, because I was a mess. I'm still a mess. I'll never not be a mess. It's hard to even really like put into words just how sad I am about this ending, because I've been following this series for what, 5-6 years now, and it's just been such a big part of my life, and knowing there's never going to be a new movie, or I'm never gonna see the cast all together at premieres or during interviews, it's really upsetting. End thoughts, I literally wrote Jen's acting, which was incredible. Josh also stepped up, which he did. He was very good in this film. The score was so good. It used a lot of elements from the other films, and the songs can make me cry at this point. Cinematography, excellent, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful movie. I wrote Gale Katniss with a like, ugh face, because I just don't like how they end off. I didn't like how they ended off in the book. I don't like how they ended off in the movie. I don't like how they how Suzanne Collins herself really just kind of killed that friendship and killed their whole arc throughout the entire series. I'll never forgive that, but that's a rant for another video. And then I just wrote I'm sad because I'm sad. However, I really couldn't have asked, I guess, for it to end in a better way. There's some things that, like I said, and I'll probably find more flaws as I watch it more, but for right now, I'm just in that sad bliss, but sad kind of feeling. Now that this video is over 30 minutes long, hopefully I can cut that down in editing, but if not, this video is kind of for me anyway, just to kind of like look back years from now when I'm like really sad still, because like literally RIP to me now that the movies are done, like. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you thought of the movie down below. I would love to talk with you because I have a lot of feelings to get out. I will see you guys in my next video that is not going to be super long and emotional. Bye.